On this edition of City Profile, we will be making history. If you'd like to find out how, please stay with us. Hello and welcome to City Profile. I'm Tom Butler, and in my tease I said that we were going to be making history, and we are. And the way we're going to be making history is because, as far as I know, in the history of this channel, the Judge Executive and the Mayor have never been on the same program, so I would like to welcome both of you today, Mayor Brandi Harless and McCracken County Judge Executive Craig Clymer. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So how did this come about? How has it never happened before? It's not your fault. You haven't always been in those positions. And how is it coming together now?
Well, the mayor called me and said, "You want to do this?" And I said, "Yep, let's do it."
That's how most things work.
Okay. So you just thought, hey, we're doing a lot of things together. This is a good outlet for it. It goes out to the world on YouTube and to the city and county on Comcast cable. So let's get together and talk about it.
Well,
So,
I do think it's something that naturally happens when we meet every Monday for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, and talk about projects that we have going on. We also work together a lot on projects, and not too long ago at the Lions Club we talked about how it's not just about saying we're collaborating, but it's actually doing the hard work to collaborate. So we have some examples today I think we'll talk about.
Right.
But that means you build relationship, it means you have a friendship, it means that you are comfortable with one another. And so one of the things that I was hoping we could do by coming on your show today is just to demonstrate to our community that I firmly believe that the city and the county have a real working relationship, and I hope that our community can continue to see that.
a lot of times when people say, I want to partner with you, they mean, I want you to do something for me. And so that's not going to be the case here. You're working together to create a lot of stuff, and I have a whole list of them. The first of them, let's get right to it because we only had 30 minutes. Or since it's really your show, you can have as long as you like. We'll just keep going for as long as we need to. But the first thing, Mayor, is 911. What's going on with that? We have a system now. We've had it for quite some time. Are changes coming? What's happening with 911?
Well, first of all, this is something the judge pointed out at our Lions Club presentation not too long ago, and he said the fundamental role of government is public safety, right? When you boil it all down to its parts, government is there to make sure that our public is safe. And one way that we do that is to ensure when you pick up the phone and you call 911 that there's someone on the other end that can dispatch public safety to your incident or your issue. That matters, and it really is the fundamental role of both of our governments. 911 in Paducah has a long history. There was different ways that we've done 911 between the city and the county in the past. We are looking forward to working even closer together in a consolidated manner. Right now, the county is almost a customer of the city. The city is operating 911 from the department position, and so we're looking to consolidate that back together so that we can look at infrastructure projects that need to be implemented. We need to make sure we're upgrading our technology. It's something we both believe is important, but even more so, we need to come up with creative funding strategies to make sure that we can pay for the upgrades of 911.
And that's always my question. When people say, we want to do these things, how are you going to pay for it? So how is it funded now?
So now it's funded several different ways. The state actually provides funding from their wireless phone charges that they collect. The city and the county collect a landline fee. It's very nominal. It's had to go up over time because the landlines are reducing, of course. Right. Everyone has a cell phone now. We subsidize it. Both the government subsidize 911 to the tune of $400,000 to $600,000 in any given year. I'm not quite sure where it is right now. So it has several different ways that it's funded currently.
So, and I don't know this, and I'm not sure if you do or not, how many people work for that? Because, $400,000 to $600,000 to a layperson said, well, I mean, it's just a phone line, right? So
yeah, well, of course, like she says, if you think about the number of landlines, corded phones is drastically reducing, and really, I think the common thought is that it's mostly older folks that are holding on to their landlines, their corded phones, don't have cell phones or don't use them exclusively, and then there are some people, of course, that just can't afford to have a cell phone. So the bottom line on some of this, if you base a lot of the fees or the expense on those people who have the landlines. You're putting it on the older folks and the people who can't afford, or poorer people. And so certainly we want to avoid that. And, like we say, the police, the fire, the ambulance, emergency services, critically important. We have to address and make sure that we take care of the folks before we, that's the top priority, before we start looking at sports, theater, entertainment, things that make life nicer. But first we want people to feel safe, and not that I don't think they do, it's just that we've got areas where we can consolidate and provide that service across the entire county, within the city and outside the city within McCracken County. And there's a possibility we will work a deal with some contiguous counties, see if they want to join us. There's been some interest shown by one or two other counties. There's economies that can be achieved by having one 911 service serve both the city and the county, and perhaps other counties as well that don't have the revenue, the ability to provide a top-notch 911 service for their people too.
Right.
And they would then pay us, for providing that service.
So safety first.
Right.
And then some of the other ways. One thing that probably is a bad word for most people is tax. And I know that recently there was a transient room tax that was talked about. Is it in effect now? You want to talk about that, Judge? Sorry to give you that one, but people don't like to say taxes, sure. But when you think about what they're going to, we had to pay for things somehow.
Well, what we came up with was a plan whereby we would place a tax on people who stay in the motel rooms. Obviously, that's mostly people that are from outside the community. Very few people in the community stay in motel rooms, I think. But we found a way to generate that revenue and compound it by putting it on sports and recreation facilities. As people know that live here, we are lacking in good soccer fields, baseball, softball, volleyball, just about any of the sports fields. We've got a lot of room to improve on that, and so we're creating this tax. The people that and sort of the beauty of it is, once we start this tax, people come in, stay in the motel rooms, so we get the revenue from that. Then that revenue goes into creating and upkeeping, maintaining the ball fields, courts, whatever that are generated. And so the nicer they are, the more people come. The more people come, they stay in the motel, and so that money keeps generating. There was some talk about whether it would hurt tourism by putting a tax on motel rooms, but the key to it, I think, is it being an efficient tax, which means it's not so high that it drives people away, but it's high enough that we see some revenue, and the people that are going to pay it, it's not going to be to the extent that we think people will go elsewhere to stay.
Are the monies specifically designated to go to the sporting
Yes.
aspect?
Yes.
So one of the things that we did too that I think is important is in that we did an interlocal agreement where the city basically adopted the Convention and Visitors Bureau as it is now. We know Mary Hammond is the director there. That Convention and Visitors Bureau became the city's tourism arm, and then the new Sports Commission became McCracken County's tourism arm. Now, they sound separate, but truly in our interlocal agreements and how we're actually operating, we're working together to make sure we can accomplish those missions as well.
And what is their mission? What's the end goal?
Sure. So the Sports Commission truly is to create tournament-worthy facilities. So to attract those outside economic, tournament options for tourism. So that will be their focus, their job. The representatives on that commission represent different sports agencies around town. They represent the hotels. And then the current Convention and Visitors Bureau will keep focusing on those more cultural assets. assets. So the arts and culture community, the convention center, the kind of historic things that they have always focused on, that will remain their focus. So we basically divided up to do more.
And so now, where are we in the process now? Either one of you want to talk about that?
Well, we're just getting started, but we have ideas. I don't know if we've got a firm idea on the estimate of what that's going to bring in. It's one of those things we're going to have to just sort of wait and see. But we are setting up the structure by which we're going to determine what our needs are, and the mayor's on a panel to talk with, and we're going to select some people who have expertise in building sports fields and generating these places, that the sports are going to be played. And so I think within a relatively short time, within 6 months to a year or so, we will have our locations and perhaps start some of the development. One thing we have, of course, we have our kids, and isn't it like 1,200 or so children that play soccer in McCracken County, and so we have some soccer fields, but the county soccer field is on the old landfill that was closed several years ago. A very undesirable location for many reasons. And so that's going to be one of the big focuses for the county, is to find a location to provide, and probably in the neighborhood of 5 to 8 soccer fields. And a soccer field is not just a soccer field. What I knew about soccer was I recognized a soccer ball when I saw it. And so I'm not a soccer guy, but I've learned that there are different size soccer fields for different age children and that sort of thing. And so you can get a parcel of ground and you can divide it up how you want into the smaller soccer fields, big ones, and the big ones can be marked off with lines, to make the smaller ones. And so it's pretty exciting to me that we're on the cusp of really generating some high quality facilities for both our residents and for people to come in and play tournaments. Soccer's strong. I didn't realize that the number of participants and the people that travel from far away, St. Louis, Nashville, Memphis. I believe we can pull them in here, and of course they're going to be spending the night in our motels over soccer tournament weekend. We're going to get some of that money and we're going to put it back into those soccer fields that they're playing on, and so it's sort of it all comes together around that.
I know we could spend a lot of time on this because I think it's really cool, and I think it's something that would be really helpful to our tourism. And you're also looking at indoor recreation, not just outdoor recreation. Right. So swimming, basketball, volleyball, indoor volleyball.
Well, yeah, let's chat about that just for a second so we can update you on that. So in the interlocal agreement, we did agree that volleyball was important. There's some movement happening on the sportsplex out by the McCracken County High School. It could be sold. It could be no longer an indoor recreation facility. So we realized there might be a gap in our community. One thing that is interesting that I think is being explored is at the Expo Center, at the Convention Center. There's a conversation there about, is the Expo Center a good place to host volleyball tournaments and even possibly basketball tournaments? So it's really interesting because a lot of organizations in our community are really buying into this concept that we need to be a place to be when it comes to sports tournaments. So that's exciting. In addition to that, the city has entered into an agreement with the design firm. We are well into that process now for an indoor recreation and aquatics facility. So that will be coming more real as the next few months progress on. And so, I think in 2 years, our community will be very proud that we finally upgraded our sports and recreation facilities, and I think we're going to be really proud of what happens.
That sounds great, and I can't wait for that to happen because I'm kind of a sports guy, and I love it with the feel of all the people coming in, and then they spend money everywhere while they're here. So It's a
Well,
really good
and you
thing.
take, the city and McCracken County, we're the only thing really generating, people come from a distance here. It's where they shop and recreate and go to the restaurants and all that. And so it's really surprising when you step back and look at it that we don't have better facilities for sports than we do, because sports are not only so many people involved in it, but it's a way of being healthier personally, and then it can be a real stimulus for the income for both the city and the county.
Also linking sports and another part of the city and county is, I didn't know till a few days ago that the county had a trail system. I know about the Greenway Trail and have been on it many times. But you are going to link the city and the county's trail systems together, and what will happen then?
Well, we are going to put a bridge across Perkins Creek that runs at the end of the Greenway Trail, the western end, there by the disc golf area off of Stuart Nelson Park. A bridge across there. It's going to be called the Leaper Bridge for Bob Leaper. We can, I guess, stay away from naming a bridge the Leaper Bridge, but
It's going to be stepping stones you have to
it's
jump
a name. It's not a
Description.
mandate. It's not a mandate.
Right.
And so it's going to go over into the backside of what is the old landfill, where there are bike trails around there, mountain bike trails. It also will connect. There's a pump track over there, the wavy, rolly bike trail that the kids get on. There's also a mountain bike, newly, I won't say completed, but near completion. The county, the previous administration, purchased a lot of commercial amenities, ramps, turns, jumps, and various things that we now have installed over there. It's in a low area there that's going to be for those mountain bikes, and it connects to, there's a air park over there for model airplanes, drones, and that sort of thing. I think we're going to try to promote drones more, and unmanned aircraft over there. And so it's a large area that will circle around, and I don't know that we're through yet with developing that greenway. I think there's a good possibility we'll continue on with it.
Okay. We don't have much time left. We've got about 10 minutes, so I want to hit some other highlights that we've got. As you're watching this at home, we are either before or after the Veterans Day Parade, depending on when you see this. But I know that there are some, it's going to be different in the future. So, Mayor, can you tell us a little bit about what we're doing differently on the Veterans Day
Well,
Parade?
first of all, let me say this was really inspired by the Wall That Heals. And when the wall came to Paducah, as we all know, it hit a nerve with our community. We were one of the largest spots, had the highest number of visitors of any other location that they stopped in. So thanks to WPSD and Milner and Orr for doing that. They really inspired us to kind of ask ourselves, how can we do better at honoring our veterans? And so WPSD, Milner and Orr, the county, the city have all come together, Paducah Sun, to formulate a new type of event and a new type of day. So we are looking at partnering with the 101st Airborne. Hopefully we'll continue that into the future. We will have the Army Band concert. What I'm hoping is that we will keep repeating this every year, that we'll make sure that we spend the entire day honoring our veterans.
And we should.
Absolutely. And let me just make clear, we are still having the parade.
Right.
So in the middle of all this day of activities and events, including starting the day with the sunrise service at the foot of Broadway, we'll also still have the parade.
Now, the route has changed, is that correct?
That's correct.
So don't stand on Broadway all up and down Broadway, or you're going to miss
Street.
it.
Yeah, from Dolly McNutt all the way over to the Convention Center going down 6th Street.
All right. And something that people, all I know about Carson Park is they have the fair there, and so tell us a little bit about Carson Park, and some of the plans that you have for Carson Park.
It was given to the county in, I think, 1936, I believe, Luther Carson estate designated to be for horse-related activities, harness racing, horse exhibitions, that sort of thing. We've got the track there. There's a grandstand. Of course, that's where the Wallet Hills was set up. A really nice facility, but it could use some sprucing up. We're looking at the possibility in the county of putting a more attractive fence up, looking at doing some renovations to Floral Hall, which is the exhibition hall there that we rent out to folks. We want to beautify that. Commissioner Jones kind of has taken that and run with it, and we're going to see about getting some money together, maybe through some grants or whatever sources. We're tight on money in the county, but we can always try for some grants and it's the only piece of property that's the county owns that's completely within the city. It's city all around, but this is our little gym inside the GEM inside of the city that the county's proud of, and I think we ought to do
So you're
more
hoping
with
to upgrade that in hopes of getting different types of events to come in and
That's
another
right.
space. I mean,
That's
it could
right.
be a concert event or whatever.
The rodeo this year was a great
Yeah.
example
Right.
of what's possible there,
Yeah,
the
I
Lone
think
Star
they've-
Rodeo.
I think they've signed up again for next year on the rodeo. Got horse barns in there. The horse barn activities picked up some. I don't know what the current number is, but we were down to like a couple of horses in there for a good while. That's picked up a little bit, and I think with a little promotion, a little sprucing up, make things nice, that we can have a nicer facility there.
And all of these things really are to help the economy of the city and the county. I mean,
Right.
we want to bring people in here. We want people to have fun, to live here. And so in order to do that, we have the Greater Paducah Economic Development, now GPED. I want to add that C on the end because that's what I'm used to saying. Mayor, would you just give a synopsis of what they do and what's going on with that organization?
Sure. Well, you might remember actually we called it PED. And it was up until January that we called it PED because Judge Clymer insisted that we say Greater Paducah, or he was going to force us to call it the McCracken County Economic I was kidding. But he seriously, he had a lot of, I actually bought him a t-shirt because he called it GPED. So I bought him a t-shirt that said GPED. So you'll hear GPED around town also,
should've
thanks to
worn
him.
that.
So I know that would have been a good outfit. Probably if you've watched the news at all in the last year, you know that the GPED has gone through a pretty big organizational change. The board has been reduced from 30 members to 10 members. There's a new CEO and president, Bruce Wilcox, who is a local businessman. He had worked for Petter Supply for several years. The judge and I sit on the board. We represent the fiscal court and the city commission on the board. And it has really been something that we've spent a lot of time talking about since the judge took office in January. We really have to be more aggressive with economic development. I always like to use the example or the metaphor of the pitcher and the catcher. Oftentimes Paducah has been catching the deals, either waiting for the state to send them in or waiting for someone to show up on our front door. And I firmly believe we have to start pitching. And that means we have to be aggressive about going out and identifying those businesses that are relevant to Paducah, that could thrive in Paducah, and start to bring them in. But even more importantly is helping our local businesses expand. And that's how you grow the economy, right, is you help your local businesses expand. So we know Dippin' Dots is expanding. Teletech has announced new jobs that's coming in. So we need to make sure that we keep focusing on that. And that's part of our duty, serving on that board, to make sure that organization's moving in the right direction.
What's the mission of the board?
The mission specifically, and that has been refined as well over this last year, is to recruit high quality, high paying jobs to the city.
And
county.
so
And county.
yes, of course.
See?
The Greater Paducah area.
Yes, which would include the county, right? How do you evaluate the success?
That's a great question. You know, for me, it really matters what activities we're doing and how we're focusing time and energy. I think the easy metric is to say jobs.
Right.
That's just an easy metric. However, I think we had a stint in Paducah and McCracken County where we were recruiting jobs to be recruiting jobs, and that ended up with $10 an hour jobs. Those aren't high quality, high paying jobs. 25% of our population lives in poverty, and we need to offer our residents an opportunity to climb that ladder and to have those high paying jobs. But there's a lot we can be doing that isn't just waiting for that metric to show up. It can be doing visits to businesses and making sure we're responding to their needs. It can be focusing on our main industries, the river industry, the healthcare industry. What are the ancillary services that those industries need, and how can we find those businesses to come to Paducah?
All right.
And see where it gets kind of tricky too is the fact when you said $10 jobs versus $25 an hour jobs and that sort of thing. You know, God created just so much land within McCracken County and the cities in the county, and so we want to say somebody wants to come in and with $110 jobs and are thinking, well, do we want to focus on that? Do we think that there's a potential that there'll be $125 an hour jobs, and of course only one employer can be there at a time, and so it's not as clear cut as just saying we're going to bring jobs. It does have to be, should be the better jobs.
One of the big things in our economic development, we've got a couple of minutes left, is the airport.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could talk just a little bit about the airport and tell me what the plans are for there and what you see happening at the airport. Jeff.
Yeah, the airport's really exciting. For one thing, I'm just confident that we're going to build a new terminal out there. People that fly into the community, business people, or just people come in to recreate, visit, or whatever. That's sort of the window into our community. They land, and you know, it's a serviceable airport, but it's old and it needs to be spruced up, just like Carson Park does. There's a lot of ground around out there. Aeronautics and aviation is the #1 export in Kentucky at the current time. I envision seeing some hangars being built out there, maybe put in, recruit businesses that will service airplanes. In the next few years, there's going to be a huge shortage of both airplane mechanics and pilots. And so I think we're going to try to talk with the college here. Dr. Reese is very interested in that, along with Kevin O'Neill. They're willing to put in programs to train people for what business needs there are. They need workforce. And so I think all of that stimulates everything else, and the airport's a very exciting place.
It sounds like we've got our work cut out for us, but there are a lot of exciting things happening, and I'm happy to have you guys on to talk about those things. Once again, we've made history. Who knew that was going to happen today when we got up? And so I'm glad that we did, and I'm glad that you've been with us. You've been watching City Profile with Mayor Brandi Harless and Judge Executive Clymer. Join us again next time. I'm Tom Butler.